welcome to Less of Me Success Stories. Today we are having a little bit of a challenge because my co-host Scott is running a slight bit late. So he's going to be joining us here in a few minutes. So while we're getting started, please take a moment to share this live video on your socials so that we can have some guests joining us. And I will let you know that we are not medical professionals, so none of us are offering medical advice. And if you decide to do any dietary interventions on your own, we highly recommend that you work with your medical team to go forward with that. We know what it's like to be helpless and hopeless. Your story is not over. You can rewrite your story at any time. We provide a platform to share stories of how people and how they've reclaimed their lives using dietary intervention. And our guest today is no different than Scott and I in that regard. She has taken the steps to change everything about her life and heal so many things. She sent me a list, and it's just like this really long list of all of these things she's healed, and I'm going to let her go into that while she tells her story. But for me, she reached out to me. She found me after I had done an interview, and it resonated with her, and we've been friends ever since because our stories are so very similar. So I will let you know, everyone, I have my box of tissues handy because whenever she tells her story, it hits me so hard that it makes me cry. So we're going to be very real here tonight. I'm probably going to be crying, but it's all good. These are good things. I need to work process through my own feelings. And when I hear our guest Valerie tell her story, she always helps me. And that's why I really wanted Valerie to join us today to share this story with our followers, because you have so much to give, and I'm so thankful. Everyone, this is Valerie Smith. Welcome to Less of Me Success Stories.
Thank you so much, Robyn. It's just an absolute pleasure to be here. You're such an awesome friend. I'm so glad that we connected, and I'm just overjoyed to be able to, even through screens, to be able to be face to face. I wish we were in person so I could give you a hug.
Me too. We were talking before we went online about you going to an event, and now I'm like, ooh, I want to go to an event. I want to meet Valerie. So going into these different places and meeting people face to face, that's all it is. It's like you've met your long lost sibling and you get to hug them, and it's wonderfully fun. So please tell us about yourself.
Okay. I'm Valerie Smith. I'll be 54 in a couple of weeks, and I have a very, very long story of struggle, of darkness. A lot of times I phrase it as a descent into madness because every decade got worse. When I was 12 or 13, I was very anxious as a child and depressed even then, before I had any kind of diagnosis. The anxiety, you can tell how bad it was because I was diagnosed with an ulcer at 12. That was how bad the anxiety was. I had a difficult relationship with my biological father, who left when I was very young. And there were issues there, psychological issues, that I think put me down the path of being anxious and depressed. And nutritionally, looking back on it now, I certainly didn't see it then, but looking back on it now, the nutrition issues set me up for what was to come. My brain, even at that young age, was not working correctly. The level of anxiety and depression and OCD that started when I was 12 or 13 was obviously not normal. And knowing now, it was a neurological issue. It was a brain neurotransmitter issue. It was not a behavior issue. It was connected with nutrition. So at 14, I felt very out of control. And the way that I sought to rein in that control that I didn't have with the rest of my life was I could control what I put in my mouth. And that was where the diet started. And I wasn't overweight, but I had already built up a self-hatred. I already didn't like who I was, what I looked like. I was never good enough. I felt. I had family around me that loved me, but the ones in my life that were antagonistic or absent or emotionally or verbally abusive, those were the ones that spoke the loudest into my mind. And that set me up for being very mindful of being punishing towards myself. So the diet started to, and it started out as innocent as you could possibly think that it is. You know, I'd eliminate breakfast while I'm going to high school. And that was easy because I could just tell my mom that I was late for school. And I would then skip lunch at school and either tell them that I wasn't hungry, or I would go sit in the classroom by myself and still have a normal supper with my family. As the anorexia continued to climb, then it affected, you know, every meal, every morsel I put in my mouth. And the OCD played into that by not only having the regular things of OCD of counting, checking. In me, it was causing both sides of my body muscles to flex. They had to be equal. I'm laying in bed, I had to check certain things. I had to lock certain things a number of times. But then it morphed into going along with the anorexia. And I then began to obsess about calories, memorizing calorie books, keeping diaries, and giving myself a goal of lowering those calories even farther, figuring out if I could lower my food again. And the next day, my goal was to go under that again, and so on and so forth. By the time I'd lost enough weight, when my family was noticing at 16, that was my first inpatient experience. And of course, I didn't want to go, but I was also at that point, I did not know how to get out of this. It had already taken a hold of me. And at that point, I had also been diagnosed not only with anorexia, clinical depression, anxiety, and the OCD. I was now diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. And that meant that I had audible voices screaming in my head 24 hours a day that I could not escape. My only escape was sleep. And these voices are incessant. They scream at you like someone with a bullhorn at a sporting event, right in your ear, and you cannot turn them off. There is no way to turn this off. These voices speak evil to you. They speak darkness to you. They tell you to do certain things. They tell you to be paranoid of others' love for you or what's going to happen to you. It is a terrible, dangerous offshoot of schizophrenia with the same psychological features. And so that, you know, those four were going on at 16 when I was first put inpatient. And so I went. I mean, I didn't fight it because I could not function. I could not go to school. I couldn't function anymore. And it kept me alive. But that experience, along with other inpatient experiences, whether it be mental ward or specifically for eating disorders, it was not ever helpful. First, it was the feeding tube that's put in, And those feeding tube ingredients that are not just for people who have anorexia, but for anyone that's gone through surgery, or the elderly, or in geriatric situations, they all have the same top three ingredients: canola oil, high fructose corn syrup, and soy. Nothing in that calms anxiety. It actually ramps anxiety and inflammation up higher. And that, that was that was my first experience of being inpatient, is being confined to a wheelchair, confined to a bed, and having this concoction pumped into my stomach 6 times a day. And when the feeding tube was removed, then you're expected to eat the tray of food that's brought to you, and it's very, very ultra processed foods. Their mode of action for anorexia, and still the protocol today, is if you can eat the pancakes, the muffins, the cakes, the pie, then you won't be anorexic anymore. That if you can eat those fear foods, then you'll be fixed. If you can put weight on, you'll be fixed. And it's not true. I've been weight restored several times between the ages of 14 and 48, and my mental illnesses got worse because it was all done through carbs, which is what the dietitians and nutritionists pushed on me. So I made it through that first inpatient, and since nothing was helped, nothing was fixed in my brain. Yes, there was weight put on me. Yes, I came out being able to eat a piece of cake. Yes, I came out with a handful of SSRIs and antipsychotic meds, and a new psychiatrist, and a behavioral therapist that was going to work with me, but nothing was better psychiatrically. And so within 24 hours of being home, I was already on the road to relapse. I was already planning how I was going to starve the next day. It just was like a waste of 6 weeks of everyone's time and money and life. So I kind of coasted along like that. Sometimes trying to be better. I was under treatment that whole span of decades, trying different meds. I had a total over the course of 30 years, because I titrated myself off of them at the age of 40. But over the course of, between 12 and 13 and the age 40, I had been on 10 different ones, and none of them helped. They just made me exhausted, tired, zombie-like, who hears voices and starves. It just numbed me out. The SSRIs made me flat. I wasn't as depressed as I was, but I also could not feel joy. I was just flat. And that was not fun. So I just went along like that. More mental illness started when I and my husband said we were going to see if we could have a family. And most doctors told me that it wasn't possible. I had already been 20 years without a menstrual period. But I weight restored myself enough on carbs again, no protein, no fat, no animal products, on carbs, to put on enough weight to get my menstrual period back, which was an absolute miracle. And it was a miracle to conceive and carry my beautiful daughter and have her. I'm thankful that she was healthy, but the pregnancy itself was difficult, extremely difficult, because nothing had changed neurologically, because nothing had healed in my brain. When I chose to push down the drive to starve, new illnesses came up that I'd never, ever heard of or done before So when I wasn't actively starving, what happened was I started cutting my arms and legs, and I also developed an illness offshoot of OCD that's called trichotillomania, which is hair pulling. And so I was pulling the hair out of my scalp, my eyebrows, my eyelashes, to deal with, and cutting my arms and legs to deal with the fact that I was not giving in to the one voice of starving myself. And those would ebb and flow. Once I had my daughter, and I tried to stop the cutting and the hair pulling, then the starvation would get stronger. None of it ever went away, but it just, one got ugly when one got a little bit more tolerable, and it just went back and forth like that. And it was difficult to pass in public. I had to use a lot of liquid face foundation makeup to cover the scars and the wounds on my arms and legs, and a lot of stuff for my hair, eyebrows, fake eyelashes to try to pass when I would go out in public, which in reality wasn't a lot. I just wasn't, I wasn't fun to be around. I wasn't fun to go to a restaurant with. There was a restaurant that we went to when my daughter was young and I was trying to be normal. I was so obsessed with making sure that the lettuce that I was ordering and the broccoli that I was ordering, which was all I could eat, was plain. I found out later that the people in the back, the kitchen and the servers had a nickname for me. They called me Broccoli Lady, because I constantly was questioning whether the broccoli had butter or oil on it, because it had to be plain. It had to be steamed. It had to be, you know, all these years I find out later that I was Broccoli Lady, which was not a good image. So yeah, it was bad. So in 2017, well, no, I shouldn't go there yet. I had medical complications that happened that made all of this worse. I had a lot of that long list that I sent you, Robyn. You know, I had a lot of physical ailments, things that went wrong. I had IBS. Was diagnosed with hypothyroid. I had GERD. I had, you know, all kinds of gas and bloating and hormonal deficiencies and all kinds of stuff. I had problems with female areas. I was diagnosed with vulvodynia and interstitial cystitis, which I was told was lifelong. It would never get better. And I had several surgeries. You know, anorexia holds the highest mortality rate of all psychiatric illnesses. It's 20%. 1 in 5 die. And they die of one of 3 reasons. They either die of starvation or suicide or for organ failure. And I'm so thankful that I survived. But when you survive that many decades, and that's that level of malnutrition, just like you alluded to, Robyn, in your intro on YouTube and Instagram, there's complications that happen. You can't be a BMI of 11. You can't be 78 pounds at 5'9", decade after decade, and not have something go wrong. So I had over the course of 10 years, 4 surgeries. And this one that was in 2010 was just, I mean, they were all awful. By this time, I'd already been diagnosed with osteoporosis. I'd had multiple fractures. I was constantly in a sling, using crutches, a walker, casts, and it took me 3 or 4 times longer to heal those fractures because I wasn't feeding myself. So at the same time that this was happening, in 2009, 2010, I began to have problems lower abdominal problems, pain, going to the bathroom, pain and pressure that I couldn't figure out what was going wrong. And after multiple doctor visits, specialist visits, it finally came down to that I had not only lost all of my muscle skeletally, but I had also lost all my internal musculature. There's muscle internally that holds your organs in place. And I no longer had that. So I had multi-organ prolapse, where I had to wait for several surgeons to coordinate their time for a 12-hour surgery so that they could piggyback off of each other. And each specialist would come in while I was under, while I was opened up, and fix their portion of the surgery. So internally and externally, when I stood up, my colon prolapsed, my bladder prolapsed, and my uterus and cervix prolapsed. Some of it had to be removed. Some of it had to be resectioned and removed and repaired and put back in place. That surgery was utterly devastating to me and to my family. And that in itself is also kind of a telling thing that where is your rock bottom? Some people ask, where's your rock bottom? Wasn't that enough to turn this around? Well, it certainly should have been, but it's not really a choice that we're making. When you're dealing with mental illness, there actually is not much of a rock bottom because you don't know how to fix it. There's no way to figure out how to turn this around because it is a brain neurological issue. You can't just choose to do something else because your brain literally is not working right in order to choose something else. So I got through that surgery, and what should have taken me 6 or 8 weeks to heal took me a year. But it didn't change anything. I tried to do better, eat more, of course, again, carbs. So by 2015, 16, 17, I was back down to where I had been for decades. Everyone's worried about me. My husband is worried that I'll go into cardiac arrest in the middle of the night and I won't wake up the next day. And I'm so down. I'm so helpless and hopeless at this point on the 4th decade. I'm secretly praying to not wake up anymore. That my only escape is sleep. And if I wake up and this all starts all over again, I would just rather just not wake up anymore. I knew there was nothing left to try, traditional treatment wise. I'd done it all. I'd even gone off grid traditional treatment and tried other things. I had tried, just different therapies that weren't necessarily in the trajectory of traditional treatment with psychiatry. And I'd had so many psychiatrists basically fire me, tell me not to come back because I was either non-compliant or I was treatment resistant. We can't help you anymore. Or if you don't agree to gain 3 pounds a week, just don't come back. And I could no more comply and do that than anything else. I couldn't. So I knew this had to be something with my brain. And no one had really addressed that. I mean, I had been on medications that were supposed to help my brain, but no one had ever really talked about what our brain really needs. And that was about the time that I found a couple books at the library by an author, Julia Ross. One of them was called The Diet Cure and one was called The Mood Cure. And I read those books cover to cover. I wasn't ready to implement what she wanted me to do, but it piqued my interest. It got me started down the path of understanding brain neurotransmitters. We have more than 100 neurotransmitters, and they are only made by amino acids. Well, where do we get our amino acids? All of our animal products, all of our meat and our eggs and our dairy. There are select amino acids in plant foods, but you have to jump through hoops to try to figure out how to combine those to make a complete protein. And then even so, there are so many anti-nutrients in plants, it blocks the absorption of the amino acids that you're trying so desperately to get. The only ones that we get without any anti-nutrients are in meat and animal foods. So that was kind of a little tiny bit of a spark, a little bit of a light bulb moment, because that was something that no one had ever presented to me before, and that was something that I knew in my heart of hearts that I had never tried. I had not eaten meat or fat for 35 years. And so that was a little spark. Then in 2017, armed with kind of that starting of that knowledge, I wasn't ready to do the food, but she recommended supplements. Well, I was already swallowing handfuls of supplements, trying to make it through the day. So, I ordered those and took those. And of course, without having the nutritional base, those supplements weren't going to do too much. You can't supplement your way to vibrant health. But it was a start of getting my brain to think about this in a different way. And so who I found next was Dr. Georgia Ede and Dr. Chris Palmer. In 2017, we live out in the country in southwest rural Ohio. And we had no fast internet, no smart TV, no YouTube. This was when this was introduced to me. And since I already had under my belt this knowledge about brain neurotransmitters, I decided to see if there was anybody on YouTube that was talking about this to get further insight, to get further help. And so that's what I did. I searched and found Dr. Georgia Ede and watched and read and listened to everything she had out there. I scoured through everything, watching her talks first, and then finding her online and just reading everything I could find. The same thing with Chris Palmer back then. I did the same thing. And so what's in both of their new books now is a culmination of what I found in them that many years ago. What they've put in their new books is how they helped me through their writings all together in one book back then. After that, I found Dr. Ken Berry and Sean Baker. And so armed with those four, two from the neurological side and two from the heavy meat, high protein side, I decided that I was going to try one last time. I had nothing left. And so this was a very long year, a very slow process. But what started was as what I could do. I had to start with where I was. I wasn't a normal, quote unquote, normal person creating a regular standard American diet, a plateful of food for a plateful of meat. I couldn't do that. I was not eating. All I was eating at the end of 2017 was a cup of spinach and a cup of cooked celery. That's all I was eating. So I had to do this in the only way that I could. I'm a researcher. I try to do things in an organized fashion so that I don't backslide. And if I was going to be successful and even see if this could help me at all, I was hoping for 10% improvement. Anything is better than the nightmare, the madness that I had been living with, because I could not live another year this way. I couldn't. So it was tiny little things. That first night, I sat at the kitchen table with 1 ounce of fat-free chicken breast. 1 ounce, 2 tablespoons of chicken. And as I chewed that and swallowed it, I wept. I just wept. because I didn't have anything left to try. But at the same time, this was the hardest thing that I ever had to do. Everything was coming at me. You don't deserve to eat. You can't eat this. The voices were screaming at me. Awful. But I had to try something for myself, for my husband, and for my family. So I put myself on a plan that I needed to eat this 1 ounce of chicken every day for a week or a week and a half. And as soon as it got a little easier, as soon as, I wasn't sitting at the kitchen table and bawling anymore, I promised myself that I was going to double it. It was going to be 2 ounces and then 3 ounces. And that's what I did. When I finally got to the point in about 8 weeks at 8 ounces of chicken, that was when I was spending more time watching Ken Berry and Sean Baker talking about the benefits and the nutritional qualities in beef. And so I decided to try to switch the chicken to beef. Of course, it was what I could do. It was 96% fat-free ground beef. But it was part of my path. It was part of what needed to be for me to do this. The drive to starve in someone who's anorexic is something that you just cannot explain it. I try my hardest to let others get a glimpse of what this is like, but it's very difficult to explain. It is. So I was able to do that. And some things started to change a little bit. The brain fog was lifting. Some depression was lifting. I was a little bit less anxious. The OCD of the cutting and the hair pulling was subsiding a little bit. Before this, I would try to make myself stop that horrible activity, and I couldn't. I always went back to it because it was my brain that was telling me to do it, and I couldn't stop. Just like my obsessiveness with exercise, I was addicted to cardio, hours and hours and hours a day, just trying to burn off what I ate. And that's another neurological issue that will heal. But I was able to switch the chicken for the beef, and then at that point, I knew that for this to work, for this to be a ketogenic diet of healing, I needed the fat, but there was no way I was going to be able to eat butter, eat spoonfuls of tallow, eat spoonfuls of coconut oil. I couldn't. I had to get it. If I was going to be successful, it had to be within the meat that I was eating. So that was when I started to put chuck roasts in the crock pot. And I switched over to that. At the 6-month mark of eating about 3/4 of a pound of chuck roast. And at that point, I had eliminated the spinach and the celery because I wanted to see if some of my illnesses, I was starting to learn about what could cause IBS and indigestion and nausea and some of these other illnesses that I'd been diagnosed with. I wanted to see if that could get better. So that was when I went just what they call the lion diet, and I went beef, salt, and water because I wanted to see if any of my digestive issues would change. And of course they did. Not only were vegetables causing, a host of these illnesses, but it was the oxalates specifically that were in some of these vegetables that I was over consuming on a daily basis for weeks and months and years that were causing this. And things healed that I didn't have on my radar at all to heal. The interstitial cystitis, I now know, and the vulvodynia, I now know, are these oxalate crystals settling in female areas, just like it can settle in your kidneys to form a kidney stone, form in your ears to form tinnitus. That's what was happening to me, and all of those things healed completely once I went off of and chelated those oxalates out of my system. So I went what you consider the lion diet. And at the 6-month mark, and I was about 3/4 to 1 pound of meat a day, more things changed. And the voices that were screaming in my head, just screaming, 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 for the first time in my life, they lowered. And now felt like they were still screaming, but they were in another room with the door closed. They were muffled. And I had never experienced that ever. And the OCD and the counting and the checking and the cutting and the hair pulling, I no longer needed to try to stop myself from doing it and promise myself that I would never do it again. I was able to just walk away and I don't want to do this anymore. And I never did it ever again. More depression lifted, more anxiety lifted. I continued on. And at this point, I wasn't even measuring it anymore. I was eating chuck roast, and then I added some other, beef in there with it, ground beef. And at the 12-month mark, everything was gone. Everything was gone.
I'm going to jump in because because I know you. I feel it. I feel it. I mean, this is just an absolutely amazing tale of healing, and it's not just that it was that you took the steps to heal yourself. Is that you did the research to take the steps to heal yourself. Somewhere in all of that was going on, you had enough left within you to say, I need to research this for myself, because what I'm getting from my medical advice is not working, and I have to save myself. I have to get out of this. And that, to me, like, there was a reason that happened, and that reason is why you're sitting here today telling us this story.
Yeah, I agree that it all happened for a reason, and it happened at the time it was supposed to, because I had been praying to not wake up anymore. And I know I have a very strong relationship with God, but I felt blocked prior to my healing. I felt, and that's the mental illness. It blocks you from the spiritual aliveness that should be there, that other people have. And I tell other people that he could have healed me instantly, but he chose not to, because if he would have, I would not have the message to help other people heal. I would not be able to come alongside anyone and explain to them how important animal foods are to the brain. So he chose to keep me alive until I could find my healing, so that now I can try to help others.
And absolutely, and you are. So I have some questions, but I do want to tell our guests who are watching us that we're opening up to questions now. Scott has arrived. You haven't seen him yet, but he's here. Scott is here, so he is ready to take your questions. So please go ahead and start asking them in the chat. So while you're telling your story, Valerie, I was just writing some things down, and one of them that you had said that so I'm going back in time.
Yeah.
Did you finish school? Because you said you had such difficulty in school. Were you able to finish and then go further? Did you go into higher education? And
I was able to finish high school somehow, like you were talking about being a researcher, and even though my brain wasn't working, somehow I was able to funnel what was left in my brain to get good grades. That was one of my people pleasing, no one's going to love me if I'm not perfect. No one's going to love me if I don't get good grades, if I don't please my teacher. So I would neglect myself to the point of getting good grades, staying up all night, studying, just in order to achieve those good grades, seeking approval. So yes, I was able to finish high school, and I attempted to go on to college. And between the age of 18 and 20, when I went to college, I got so much worse that I had to drop out. I had the clinics at the universities were telling me that, you know, that I either needed to take a leave of absence or I needed to quit, because I was down to 75 pounds, and people in the dorm were terribly concerned. And at that point, I was also blacking out and fainting in the bathrooms, in the restrooms, and they would find me and bring me to. And it was just by sheer being blessed that I didn't, as I was falling, didn't hit my head and cause further damage. So, but I had to drop out. And at that point, at 20, when I dropped out, I got a part-time job with my family's business, because that was all the hours I could work, because I slept and needed to rest. There was nothing at that weight. There was nothing keeping me going. And at that point, I was under the care of a lot of psychiatrists, trying to get me to a point where I could either go on with my life or go back to college, but I had to drop out.
So that makes me then go into the people around you, because obviously visually, I know you were doing some things to try to make yourself quote unquote look normal, but I'm sure visually at 75 pounds, you looked different than everyone else. What were people around you doing? What was your family doing when you were younger? Were they at their wits' end? Were they trying to help you? Were you just fighting with them all the time? And then, I'm sure you had a roommate in college. What were they doing?
Family-wise, it was all of the things you listed. And all of those emotions could happen from one family member at a time. At one point, it would be empathy and talk to me softly and say, please, we're desperate for you to be better. Please try. And then a day later, they would be so exasperated that it would be anger, that you've got to do something. Why are you doing this? And it just went along that way. My mom spent a lot of her time crying because she felt helpless to help me. She's standing by, watching her teenage daughter, watching her 20-something-year-old daughter, and then on into meeting my future husband and my grandparents, everyone watching me just be skeletal, just be so, and I sent you the pictures. I use them on, I use them not as a shock factor, but I use them because there are some people that come at me and say, well, you probably weren't very bad, that you were just slightly had an eating problem and then you came out of it. And I need to share that no, this is 40 years of me that I shouldn't be alive. This is coming back from 75 pounds. This is coming back from something that you see on a National Geographic magazine from a third world country. This wasn't just losing a few pounds and then eating differently and coming out of it. This was desperation. This was really bad. In college, my roommates, my dorm mates, they dealt with it by avoidance. We didn't talk about it. And at first, they were all, up and come to the cafeteria with us, or we're going to go to this party, or we're going to get together out in the community room and watch a movie and have popcorn. And at the beginning, the invitations were there, but that quickly turned to just nothingness, because they knew that I would say no, and they knew that even if I went, it was torture. And that goes for my family too. My husband and I go on dates now, and we have a glorious time. But there were years where he didn't ask anymore. You don't go out on a date with your spouse at that weight, and the only thing that I can eat is a bowl of plain lettuce. I can't even allow myself to have salad dressing or a crouton or a carrot. What kind of a romantic date is that with your husband, to sit across from them when I am tortured and filled with anxiety and calculating down to the calorie each bite of lettuce, when I'm supposed to be engaging with my husband and having an intimate evening of sharing our lives together? And it couldn't be that. My brain was so disordered. So we didn't go out anymore. There was no point.
What I understand because of my own mental illness is that fight, is that constant battle. I didn't have voices like you had voices, but you are now dealing with your family members trying to help you, and then this voice speaking to you, and then the people pleasing, trying to please, and that is just simply exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And then factor in the fact that you're not well nourished. It's I'm just, I don't even have words, because I just don't know how to say what I'm feeling right now. Is honestly where I am with this. It's that this is just so amazing to me, how much different you are, who you are now, and how you can share and light up a room. And y'all, I've seen a picture of her holding a grandbaby, and the joy just coming out of her. I mean, like, the picture almost looks like it should be warm, and it's just a photograph, but it looks like it should feel warm because of all of this healing that she has done. It's just simply amazing. Scott, I think you have a question.
I do have a question, and I wanted to chime in since I am late. Thank you so much, Valerie, for being on here. I apologize for being late, but it is our privilege to have you here. I have a question for Matt, and he asks, how did your illness affect your relationship with your daughter, and how has that changed?
Well, first of all, don't apologize for being late, because you had family issues that you needed to attend to, and that comes first. So that's the priority.
Appreciate it.
Okay. My daughter. It was very difficult, as I have a lot of regrets that I try to redeem now. I don't live in that regret. I don't feel shame or punishment, but I do know that it was difficult. She, at a young age, was very mature for her age, and thankfully she never, I couldn't shield her from what I looked like, but I tried my hardest to never talk about my physical appearance in front of her. I never talked about that, oh, I'm fat, oh, I need to go on a diet. She knew at that point that even though I was in active starvation, that I was in agony. She knew that I did not want to be this way. So I didn't present to her that this was how I wanted to be, that this was a diet that I was on, that this was what I was striving for. Even though privately the anorexia part of the brain does want to be skeletal, does want to look that way, I tried my hardest not to be vocal about that to her. I desperately wanted to shield her from anything that I was presenting to her. She worried about me. She tells me now that as a young child, she would lay in bed at night wondering if mommy would be alive the next day. And I didn't know that. That was not something that she ever, my husband voiced that to me, but that was something that my daughter never voiced to me until now that she's an adult and married and a mom herself. So the pain that I caused her is a terrible regret. But there's nothing that I can do about that now except for show her and show my husband and my family and show others the overflowing joy that I have today over everything in life. I used to look at a sunrise and a sunset and feel sadness. There was nothing that I looked forward to. Christmas and New Year's was sadness. Everything was dark. None of it is dark anymore. My brain is so alive and at the same time so calm. My thoughts are my own. The love that I feel and the messages that I feel that I get from God are alive and full of love now. There's no self-punishment. There's no self-hatred. There's no disordered, awful madness going on anymore. It's all completely gone. Completely. And I now have the joy of making brand new memories every single day. And it could be just the mundane of just having tea with my daughter and holding my grandson that could have so easily not been available if I had perished. It could be the everyday thing of going out with my husband on the weekend and sitting across from him at a restaurant and just looking into each other's eyes and just smiling and finishing each other's sentences and knowing what each other is thinking. It is the joy in getting to be with my mom almost every day of the week and being friends now and taking a walk together, whereas previously, even though I was in my 40s, she felt like she had to be a caretaker to me because I was so ill. We were not on the same level. We couldn't meet in the middle as friends, and I couldn't give to her the way she had always given to me. I now can be on an equal playing field with everyone in my life and give, whereas before I was an empty vessel, just an empty vessel all the time with a hole in it, because when they would try to fill me, it just went out. It was never filled. And now it's not only filled, but it's overflowing.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. You put it so beautifully. And you know what? Yeah, we can't change our past, but the fact that your family gets to enjoy and witness the joy that you have now is it's a reward to them, and they get to live in this moment. And the sanctification process is never a fun or enjoying one, but what comes out in the end
Yes.
is amazing. Thank you. I mean, I know it's tough for you, but I appreciate you sharing that. Um, I had a question personally when you were talking about the oxalates, and I don't know if you would know this, but do you your response to the oxalates? Do you feel like you responded so strongly with them because that's all you really consume, overconsumption, or that's just how your body reacts? Do you know, or do you really have an answer on that?
Yes, I have thoroughly researched this. I have used the resources on Twitter of Sally K. Norton and Monique Attinger, our local expert on Twitter. I have binge watched all of their videos, gotten on both of their websites. I have written extensively about oxalates, and of course Sally Norton's book that has come out. It's overconsumption. Okay, so we can consume a certain amount of oxalates every day and be fine. Our body will chelate them out and then resume that the next day. If we are over consuming them in large quantities, day after day, week after week, our body cannot chelate them out, and they are stored. They're stored as oxalic acid crystals in our body. And they can manifest themselves in a lot of different ways. In some people, it's depression and anxiety. When they remove oxalate food, high oxalate foods, and they spend a time of healing, of getting those out of their system, their mental health improves. In other people, it's no longer having a kidney stone, because kidney stones are calcium oxalate crystals. In other people, it is like I talked about, female issues, male prostate issues, female issues. Those oxalate crystals will settle in certain areas of our body. It also can cause a lot of arthritis and joint pain. And for those who have had, 8 or 9 different diagnoses of all the different types of arthritis, and also multiple sclerosis, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I previously had and no longer have, those oxalates can really cause harm in all of those conditions. And I've not even listed all of the things that oxalates can do. There are pages upon pages of illnesses that these can cause that you don't know are causing them until you remove them from your diet and see how you feel. So there are a whole subset of people out there that are plant-based, that are consuming a huge spinach salad every day, drinking glassfuls of almond milk and eating handfuls of almonds, lots of raspberries, kiwis, starfruit, beets, sorrel, putting cups full of spinach in green smoothies. These are the people that are going to end up with illness eventually. It may not happen today. It may not happen next week or next month, but it will accumulate in your body, and you will end up with some sort of reaction. And so 9 of the illnesses that I had were either partially oxalate or completely oxalate toxicity that healed. I mean, 26 illnesses healed, and I can recognize 9 of those on this list that match up with the research that I've done, with Sally's book that lists all the different things that can happen in your body from oxalates. And those were illnesses that I didn't think could ever be healed, because doctors told me that they couldn't, that these were lifelong, that osteoporosis is not reversible. Interstitial cystitis is not reversible. Vulvodynia is not reversible. And I've been healed of all of them.
That's fascinating. I appreciate the info. And here I asked, do you know the answer? And you just educated me. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Oh, I like
Now
to.
we need to have Valerie to come on as an oxalate expert.
Right.
I am no expert, but I love reading.
No, but you did mention Sally Norton and Monique Attinger, and they are
They
definitely
are who I have gotten my information from. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So we've actually hit our hour. If you don't mind, I have one more question, and then our last question that we do. Do you have a couple more minutes to?
I have nothing going on. I am free.
Okay.
However long.
Thank you. I appreciate you. So one of the things that I was going to ask you about while you were talking, and it sparked in my head, is that you were talking about having to have surgeries and different things that have happened in the course of being malnourished for so long. Do you now have long-term problems that aren't going to be able to be repaired, that you have to deal with on a daily basis? Or aside from what happened in your surgical during your surgery, is that everything?
Thankfully, I have managed to heal everything. I do not deal with anything on a daily basis, but I've got to put a caveat in there. I believe the reason that I don't deal with any of those issues anymore is eating in abundance. I come across a lot of people, especially women, who undereat. They expect to heal extreme illness on 8 ounces of meat a day, and that's all they're eating. If I had not pushed myself to continue to increase my food, put myself on a protocol of certain supplements and weight training to heal my hypothyroid and my osteoporosis, I would still be dealing with those things today. I would still be hypothyroid. I would still be dealing with bone pain and fractures and osteoporosis. The healing that arrived at those two very large diagnoses is because of the volume of food that I got myself to eat 4 years ago, and I continue to eat today. There has to be extra. You cannot expect to heal illness by eating the amount of food that just is enough to run your organs and lay in bed. We all have a basal metabolic rate, and that's not enough for healing. That doesn't heal anything. That is the bare minimum to keep you from being deficient or sarcopenic. That's just the bare minimum to survive. That's not what you need to eat to thrive and heal. So the healing that came was because of the amount of what I was eating.
And this is why we are sisters in this journey together, because I feel the exact same way. I am so pro eating. I want you to eat so that you can sustain your life, so that you can do the things that you want to do, and so that you can heal. And the only way you can do that is to take in that nutrition. I love what you just said. And it's hard to find another person out there that's saying that message. A lot of people just want to cut back. And I guess, and I didn't live myself in that diet mentality world, but I guess that's just that little thing that resonates, especially with the women. I have to eat a small, little tiny salad and just, just a splash of some dressing on there and eat like a bird. And I'm like, no, throw that big old steak down. Let's go. Let's do this. That's exactly why we were talking before we went live. We were talking about, you had just been on Keto Savage podcast. Scott's also been a guest on Keto Savage, and how much we love Robert Sykes. And that's a lot of the reason why, because he really is promoting that you eat.
Yes.
You can get the caloric amount of food that you need and fuel yourself for all of the things that you want to do and heal. And so we follow him as well. We think he's great. So if y'all aren't following Robert Sykes, That's Keto Savage. Please go follow. And you have 2 podcast episodes to listen to, because Valerie was just on and Scott was on a couple weeks ago as well. So, I'm in the presence of greatness right now. Scott, have any other questions come in? I think everybody was just so enthralled with the stories. There weren't a lot of questions coming through.
No, not a lot of questions, but just kind of wrap it up. Tim just said this story is absolutely amazing, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it truly is. It's like, I don't know where to go. Like, I want to talk to you. Got to meet my husband before we got on, and I got to, I don't know if he knows that my earbuds were in, but he said some very sweet things. And we were talking about our spouses, because somehow we both picked, chose wisely. We both chose wisely in that our spouses stuck with us during the darkest times. So do you have some insight as to how that happened? How is your relationship, was your relationship with your husband, and how is your relationship now, and where do you see it going?
We met at church, and 32 years ago, and we first became friends and aligned spiritually. And when we fell in love and got married, and of course he knew all along the way, all of my difficulties, but loved me anyway. He was the first man that loved me unconditionally in my life. I had a dad that I felt not unconditionally loved by, and I had some male grandparents that loved me, but not unconditionally. And so Dwight is the first man that ever truly loved me as I was, but wanted the best for me, but wanted me to be healthy and well. And so those vows that we took, we consider them more than vows. We consider them a covenant, that we were in a covenant relationship with Christ, that we're Christ followers, and he is our head. Dwight and I are equals, and Christ is our head. And it was those vows that made him and I both know that no matter what happened, neither one of us was leaving. Neither one of us, I'm still amazed and thankful that he did, that he stayed, even though we made those promises to each other. But that's the depth of the love we have with each other, just the same as that you have, Robyn, with Matt, that no matter what, and that's the real, for better or for worse. And we lived a lot of worse. We lived a lot of years that it was just could not get any worse. And so that love deepens when you become well, and that love becomes new. And it's almost like you're falling in love all over again. Definitely for me, because now I'm loving him from a sane, sound mind, which I'd never experienced before in my entire life. I've never approached life from a mind that was well. And so it's every day is amazing. And everybody has bad days. There's stress. There's things that go wrong. People get sick. Cars get into accidents. Something happens with your house. I mean, I am not living in a bubble. I'm not living in some perfect world where nothing is going wrong. The difference is, while all those things are swirling around me going wrong, I'm floating above it in joy. And that's where I'm at.
Yes, that I totally understand that. I get asked frequently, like how to, or actually it's Scott will say, you have that's a good way of looking at that. And I'm like, what? Nobody's ever said I've had a good way of looking at anything before. So what are you talking about? I don't have a clear head. I'm the loop wonky one that can't think. And you're right. It's rediscovering each other all over again. It's hard to describe, but you're like a whole new person, and you're like, it's heart forward now instead of crazy brain forward. It's heart forward. Everything comes from here now, and that just makes the outlook on everything, the car, the house, the whatever. It just makes the outlook on everything. Just, we've been in these deep dark places. Nothing's going to be that bad ever again.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nothing can compare to that kind of madness. Yeah.
No, not at all. Well, Valerie, I really appreciate the fact that you stayed on a little longer. So I have two final questions for you, and thank you, guests, for joining us and coming to our chat and listening to Valerie's story. So the first this is an easy question. Okay, so here you go. Easy question. Where can people find you to connect with you? Because I know that you are very willing to help others. So where can they find you?
I am very willing. Yeah. Don't want anyone to go through what I've gone through if I can help even one person. So I am most active on Twitter, but I'm also on Instagram. I check both of them daily, but I post daily and most of my content on Twitter. Both of them are the same handle, Valerie Ann 1970, and that's spelled VALERIEANNE, and the number 1970, which is the year I was born. And anyone can comment on anything. I try to reply to everyone, and I of course prioritize when I get a direct message. Those come first. And I am actively phone counseling. I'm phone counseling about a dozen people right now that have reached out to me, needing help, whether it be for eating disorders, regular carnivore health, lion diet, NSNG, keto. I've explored all of them and support all of these different ways of healing. There is no one right way for anyone. So I come alongside and help them discover what is the right way for them. It could be something that looks like mine. It could be something entirely different than my approach. But I try my best to help them figure out, tweak some things, change some things that might not be going as well as they would like them to, and help them question their reaction to certain foods or certain things or certain nutrient profiles, and help them figure out what would help them to feel better. So anybody can find me. I'm there.
Yes, and I love that you are so willing to do that, because we do. I see it a lot, and I think it's been coming up in conversations a lot, where there's like some very dogmatic people within the community, and I think Scott and I agree with you that if there's a range that will work for some people. I can't do a lot of vegetables, but some people can, and it's okay. I don't hate you because you can do it and I can. It's just, that's how it is, and that's how life goes. So I appreciate that you are helping others out there who are seeking help, because we need every voice in the space that we can get to say these things, to put them out there. Scott, do you have anything else before I go to the last question?
Nope, you're good to go.
All right. So, Valerie, we asked this question of all our guests, and you told me you've listened to the show, so maybe you've thought about it a little bit. So maybe you cheated. I don't know. So the last question is, if you had one piece of advice for someone who is just starting on this journey to better health, what would that be?
It would be to not ever give up hope. a lot of my posts that are serious about my journey and that I'm trying to inspire others, I use the same phrases, that no one is beyond hope, no one is too far gone, and no one is beyond healing. And to go along with that, healing takes time. You can't be in a state of health that you're in and expect to turn it around in a week or 2 weeks or even 30 days. You may see improvement in there, but don't give up. And, I was sick for 4 decades, and if I had given up, I would not have arrived at where I am now. It took a year to heal all of that. And I personally think that's a short amount of time compared to 4 decades previously. So I always encourage people to give it as much time as it takes. Don't abandon it after a week and say it didn't work for me. Don't abandon it after 30 days and say this just, isn't working. Reach out to someone who's done this for longer and let them help you figure out if there's something that you can change to be more successful, or to just be a cheering section for you to say, keep going. What you're experiencing will heal if you give it enough time. So that's what I would say. Never give up hope, and that healing is a journey. It's also not a straight line. Sometimes it's 3 steps forward and 2 back. And you just have to keep going. And you have to, whether it be mentally or writing it down, write down the things that have changed, so that when you get discouraged, you can look back on them and say, well, these small things have improved in the last 2 weeks or the last 30 days. So that's my motivation to keep going.
I could have said it better myself. That was wonderful. Thank you, Valerie, for joining us. It's been so great to finally meet you, even though it's over a screen. And hopefully one day we will get to actually give each other that big hug that I would love to actually give to you. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. She's actually given me a great lead in to 2 things with her answer. It's never too late, and this meetup concept. We're gonna have to change the schedule again, everyone. So sorry, but I'm heading to Vegas in 2 weeks to go to the COSI conference that Dave Feldman and all are hosting. So we are not going to have a show on that night. Instead of skipping so many shows, we're going to do one next week, which leads to the It's Never Too Late. Our next guest is in his 70s and has done what he needs to do to turn some things around. And the announcement post for that is already up. It came up at 8:15, and I'm looking at it right now. So before you hop off of YouTube, go back to the homepage for our channel and find out who our next guest is. I'm very excited about it, and I hope y'all join us next Thursday, because I'm going to a conference. So thank you again, Valerie, for joining us. Everyone else, thank you for joining us. And reach out to Valerie. She's amazing. She is so willing to give. And you guys, she gets a lot of flack on the socials. So come help her take care of some of those naysayers. She's for real. She has what was it, 26 illnesses healed?
Yeah.
26 total illnesses healed. This is the real story here, that meat heals. And I showed her earlier, I'm wearing my Meat Heals shirt today in her honor, because that is exactly what she did. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you next week.